I'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for passions. And this podcast might be a little rough and tumble. Let's say that it's a rated R. And so if you go to a movie that's rated R and they say it's rated R because of language, violence, and sex, if there's language, violence, and sex in the movie, you don't go and complain to the to the theater owner. Like, so you have been forewarned that this is rated R. Um, and so if there's things that likely will offend you. And so Jim Bontrager says, God offends the mind to reveal the heart. So I'm just saying this one can get a little bit messy. And so just everybody's forewarned about that. Ben, what would you like to accomplish today?
Um, Honestly, kind of just uh struggling in general. And
And what does that
so
mean?
uh patience is a lot lower than usual, and I'm trying to figure out exactly why.
Yeah, so yeah, good question. So Tom Coons, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, he and I were on he and I were on the on Thanksgiving Day, and we were doing a podcast, and he went ahead and said, I said, "Hey Tom, what's your biggest challenge? What would you love help on?" And he said, "Patience." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, actually, Tom, you don't need more patience." He says, "No, I do." I said, "No, you don't." We argued back and forth, and finally he said, "Well, um, what do you think I need?" And I said, "Tom, what you need is a system to where other people around you will have less patience for themselves, and so you don't have to have patience with stupidity." And he's like, or lazy, sloppy. We call them slups. So sloppy, lazy, undisciplined, and pathetic. And so we're all slups in, various times in our life. And so there's in the white paper library, there's, in phase one of that, there's learning to think differently. And there's five white papers in a book. And then phase two is going to be the income machine. And there's five white papers and a book. And 2-3 is patience, the silent killer. So Ben, not a big reader. What we need to do is get somebody to read. So, did you resonate with Mark some, Ben? Is it Jerez?
Whereas, yes.
Perez. Okay. So I resonated with Mark because, Mark has some type of, I don't know, something. Sometimes I have social autism. It's a huge, huge disability, probably one of the biggest disabilities a human being could have. So the benefit I get from having that disability is that I can relate to other people. Like I can connect with other people, in a way, because I have a disability as well. And so, Ben, this might be a good one for you to read or have somebody read to you, or, that'd be cool. I've thought about that in the past. It'd be great to have a mom like Melissa. You could read it to your kids, or Ginger Ann. You could read it to your kids, or Rosanna, you could read it to your grandkids, or Elaine, you could read it to your children. So we need a mom's voice that's reading it the way moms read to their kids, or grandmothers read to their kids. So I would throw that out there, um, because there's some that struggle with reading, and so, which is fine. It is what it is. And so that's one podcast, or that's one white paper. If that one doesn't get, how, Ben, they have different antibiotics,
Yeah.
different levels. Now, again, I'm a little nervous about having a new guest on with Mark. Um, he seems to think that I'm a nice guy. Don, did you not warn him?
Uh, no, because I wanted him to come on.
I see. Okay, okay. Right, right. So now I'm a little nervous. And so um so Mark,
What I can tell you is that uh, I haven't known Mark very long. In fact, I think we met for the first time in December at a 3-day workshop that we both took together, and we connected so quickly. We both think that we were at that event to meet each other. There wasn't any other reason. But uh, what I do know is he's like me in the sense that uh, he is very, very caring and concerned about people in general, about humanity. But at the same time, uh, he wants it straightforward and you know give me if you gotta give me a hard shot call here, got a Navy SEAL me, have at it. So I wasn't afraid to bring him on because that's how I see our relationship, Mark.
so Mark, are you married?
No, I'm single.
Okay. So I was a little concerned if you were married. I'm not sure why. It just kind of came into my mind, and I thought if he's married, his wife might think I'm narcissistic, and so I've got to be a little careful about that. I'm very sensitive.
Why would women wives think that you're narcissistic? How do they get that?
Can anybody explain that to Don?
I have no idea.
Well, just before you do explain it, uh, there was this wife that recently of this guy that I know, and she didn't forbid him, but she influenced him greatly not to go ahead and hang out with me for a year. So the husband didn't hang out with me for a year because his wife thought I was narcissistic, and his wife never met me and she never read anything and she never heard anything. She never had any direct connection. It was only through her husband that she had the connection with me, and she thought I was narcissistic. And so sorry, that was my oldest daughter, Ginger Ann, who was sharing something. So I wanted to give a little context before she, like, any great daughter, especially if they're, uh, well, we won't go there. Golden child, we won't go there. Um, and so I'm sure she's going to say something positive about her father and support him and not throw him under the bus. So go ahead, Ginger Ann.
I was just saying I had no idea why somebody would believe that to be the case.
Right,
You kill me, Mark. You kill me.
right. Like, like, how could somebody think, especially if they've never met me or heard anything about me? Anyways, getting back to Ben. So, Ben, there's a number of new white papers out there that have been developed since your brother's death. And so, when you have a son who dies, and, especially the way he died, so suicide, rifle shot to the head, with your brother 5 feet away from him who is 19 years old, this does something to your brain, Ben. It just does. And it's okay. But it does something to your brain that is insane. And so it gives you perspective in life. And so when other people don't have perspective, it irritates you. When people have a lot of trauma, you're just like, really? You just don't even know how to respond to them. Now, if you're healing, Ben, and people around you are not healing, or you've healed and others aren't, or you're working to stay healed when others aren't, that's where it gets dicey. And so there's a new white paper out there addicted to lazy, and um, and it's crazy. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. There's, other there's other white papers out there. Wussy Men is a good one. I like that one. And so there's another one. Again, it's rated R. You've all been warned. Jump off, put it on mute, whatever. But there's another one out there. Make sure the grandkids aren't listening to grandpa right now. Um, well, if Melissa's are, I guess I can. Oh, get your head out of your bum. But that's pretty cool. So there's this white paper where it's get your head out of your bum. And mommy, what does that mean? Grandpa said, get your head out of your bum. What does that mean, mommy? So um anybody know what it's yeah, anyways, a lot of trauma is revealed on these calls here. So Ben, from my perspective, I think a lot of times people manipulate, they leverage improperly. And when you have something that's happened to me or your mother or you and your five siblings who are still alive, it does something to each of us, and it makes it where it's people can sense they're more vulnerable around us, around you, when they know the story, because how do you function day to day? How do you be the husband you were created to be? How do you do the things that you were created to become? So I don't know. So with me, man, I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm becoming more direct, and and I'm trying to seek to give people warning so people have heads up on what it is. Um, and people who want to be around me is fine, and people who don't, I'm fine with that too. There's 8 billion people on the planet. Questions, Ben, on anything?
Not exactly. The white papers, I mean, if I really get irritated with myself, I'll read them, but I don't.
Yeah, my
I
guess
try
is
to.
probably won't, which is fine. It's okay. Um, so we need one of the women to read it to the children and then record it and then get it onto the website. And so somebody can download the white paper. So there's something about a woman's voice um, that will make things that are really brutal and hard and painful and messy. Um, it's like a morphine shot. And
Well,
so
it comes from the fact that as a child, mommy read us the stories. Mommy was that comforting voice. Mommy was the warm belly rub person in the family, generally speaking. So I think that, and something interesting I heard not too long ago, as a matter of fact, from a medical standpoint, if I can articulate this properly, that uh, moms and their kids are connected. I mean, you know that we're still in their bloodstream for a short period of time after birth and whatnot, but scientists are saying that we still have a connection, or the mom, on a physical blood internalization standpoint all our lives.
see, and this fits with what Frank Forte said years ago to me. He said, scientists now say that when there's a blood donation, transfusion to somebody else, the person could be in New York that gave the blood, the person can be in California that received the blood. And if the person in New York has pain, actually the blood cells that were transferred to the person in California react to the pain in New York. It's like,
Wow.
what?
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
right? So
Yeah.
that connects in with a mother's connection to and children. I wish Patrick was on. One of you should text Patrick, because Patrick said something very interesting. Patrick and I do the White Male Over 50 podcast. That's a wild one. I'm telling you, that one's crazy. And so he went ahead and said, he said, yeah, men pretty much, aren't that big of a deal. Fathers aren't that big of a deal. Moms are everything. I mean, why do you? I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, oh, moms have all the power. It's crazy what they are. I said, really? And he's like, yeah. And I said, um, what do you mean? He says, well, that's why they send men to war. They can die. Yeah, they die as long as somebody's got a mom. I'm like, oh, never thought of that. So he's got an interesting perspective on how to create men today, and I resonate with it. Mary Jo, good to have you on. What would you like to accomplish today, Mary Jo?
Oof. Not being addicted to lazy.
So you've already taken the first step where you recognize it. I think just absorbing that. See, the challenge is that lazy people tend to attract other lazy people. And people who are lazy around us want us to be lazy so they don't feel so bad.
I mean, misery likes company.
Ish, yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Is it lazy or is it procrastination? I mean, to me, you say lazy, that to me would turn somebody off because that's kind of a negative connotation, whereas procrastination is not something that's so personalized. It's and you can accept that. I came across just what a great quote the other day that says procrastination is the will annihilate your destination. Actually, that's not the exact quote, but that's the gist.
The best
Procrastinate.
procrastination video I've seen, it's in the Voices of Integrity. So if you go to voicesofintegrity.com and then you go to podcasts up at the top, and then you go to Powerful Video Library. And then these are, I think there's, 30 videos. And if you have really cool videos, Don just submitted one and he's in phase 2. So I think he's phase 2, number 2, or something like that. Anyways, the procrastination video is going to be number 5. And I'm telling you, this thing is the best procrastination video. And then there's a podcast, of people going through the videos. So watching these videos is cool because they're short, easy to do. But the conversation about the video with, a group of people like is on now, that is even more fun because people will see things. And so, is there anything specific, Mary Jo, that you would like to cover today in that? On laziness?
I don't know.
So laziness is like any addiction where the more you get, the more you want. So somebody told me I'm 61 years old. At 59, two family members told me that my feelings were important. So for 59 years of my life, I did not know my feelings were important. And my life's been a lot harder now that I know my feelings are important. Why is that, Mark? Thanks for asking. It's because feelings are addictive. The more you feel, the more you want to feel. And if you're a woman, it's okay to do that because you're a woman, you're kind of wired for it. It's okay. There's some benefit to it in theory. But as a man, yeah, don't go there because feelings, what happens is you start to feel entitled, and then you feel self-righteous, and then you feel a victim. And these three feelings, the more you get, the more you want. The better you feel about the self, the more better you want to be. And the more you learn that when you're a victim, other people feel sorry for you, or at least you think they do. And so the inoculation, the vaccine against entitlement is thankfulness. The vaccine against self-righteousness is humility. And the vaccine against victimhood is taking ownership. And so yeah, there's some really cool things that are going on. I love that you see that, Mary Jo. So I would go ahead and take that addicted to lazy, internalize that, and start sharing that with other groups. We did a podcast actually on earlier this morning. We did a podcast on it, and it was really interesting. It had some spice in it. It had some sass in it for sure. Anyone else have anything else that you would like to share as it relates to Ben's the voices of integrity for passions? Anybody have any thoughts or any other things as it connects back what Ben was sharing at the very beginning?
You know, I wanted to go back to laziness for a moment, um, and just offer another perspective. I'm an inventor, and it's often said that, um, well, as an inventor, often they're lazy because they're looking for streamlining or finding easier ways to get things done. And
Oh, Mark doesn't realize this, so he's just learning from me. He's just learning about me. And so I have a lot of trauma in my life, Mark.
uh-huh.
And so I had a son-in-law that once said that lazy was good because lazy people, they find, they find better ways to do things. And I think that's not lazy. I think that's just smart. Um, and um, that there was a military general who liked to have lazy people, and we were out in Annapolis, at the Navy shipyards and stuff like that. And we were out there, and we were eating, and I said, "Do you have an article on that?" And he gave me an article on that, and it was most intriguing. Where the general said he liked lazy people because he could put them on the front lines. So I think I know what you're saying, and I don't think that inventiveness or creativity or trying to make people's lives easier, I don't think that connects into laziness. I think that's caring. And so I think when we mix those things, I appreciate what you're doing. Um, I don't think you're lazy. If you're an inventor, I don't think you're lazy. You invent one thing, and once you invent something and it changes people's lives, what do, Mark? You invent something else.
You do, yeah.
Yeah. So, why do you invent? So I don't think lazy people try to create new things. Lazy people they're self-consuming, and they think they're thankful. They think they're humble. They think they're ownership. They think, but they're not. They're entitled, self-righteous, and victims. And so I apologize, Mark, especially since our first meeting, to interrupt you. But I didn't want anybody who's lazy to go ahead and grab onto that and say, see, I'm just an inventor. It's like, you know, maybe. So I don't know if that makes sense, Mark, or
No, it makes total sense. I guess I always try to look for something positive. Like, how can you turn something that feels
I think
um
I think being positive, like we all need people in the front lines to die. There's nothing wrong with that. Like I
uh,
think lazy people get what they deserve in life. They whine and they complain and all of that. So I call it the cow manure principle. We all want fragrant roses, but we often in life get manure, we get cow manure, we get crap like we do. So I think what we do is that we just accept it like this stinks. We're not going to go ahead and put it in our face and smell it. We're not going to put it all around our house and say, oh, this is great. Cow manure is cow manure, but it still has value. And that value is that we can plant it and make the roses more fragrant. We can put it in our garden and get wonderful things from it. But I think the challenge I have in today's society is we're not calling people out on being stupid, or ignorant, because we don't use those words because it's going to offend somebody. And it's like, well, maybe you need to be offended, maybe you need to go ahead and do it. And so, I think I think I'm like you. Like I always look to see the good in things. Like years ago when we lost a client that was 95% of our business, I came home and I was younger and we had 7 kids. And this could have put us out of business. And my wife said, how did your day go today? I said, it went awesome. And she looked at me and then she said, is it your awesome or is it somebody else's awesome? I'm like, well, it's mine. She says, what happened? I said, well, went out to lunch with Jack Eastman and we lost him. She's like, that's like 95% of our business. I said, it is. And she says, why is that awesome? I said, well, because it forces me to do something I should be doing anyways. You shouldn't have one client. That's not a business. That's a job. And so, anybody else have any, Mark, did you want to close that loop or thought?
Um, well, a lot of ideas came, and you're right. When you're, yeah, I know I learned pretty early on in business how relevant it was to spread it out and not have one customer who dumps. So you're absolutely right. Um, I guess I was reflecting on many things. The general's perspective, oh yeah, I like lazy people. I'm going to put them on the front line. That does two things. It either they they have to learn very quickly
Right.
to. Um, I was just reflecting on that, and I was just like, "There's some genius in that."
Right.
Um, yeah.
It's interesting because there was this couple that I knew, and they were engaged, and I was talking to the grandfather of the soon to be husband, and he went ahead and I was talking to him, and I said, your grandson seems to be, like nothing gets through, like he's like it's, and he laughed and he said, well, that he said it has to be that person's idea. And I knew, the bride to be, and I'm like, that's not going to go ahead and go well for him. So putting people on the front lines, I'm not saying, getting married is like being on the front lines of a war. I'm not saying that. That would be cruel to
No,
say.
no, no.
You
You're
know,
not saying that, Mark. I
so
get that.
we're going into Eddie. Good to have you joining us. We're just wrapping up one podcast, moving to the next one. So look forward to welcoming you. Anybody else have any closing thoughts before we wrap up this podcast? Okay. So if you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300, outside the US 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.